All right. So let's see if that worked this time. Yep, public. God. All right. So turns out Facebook changed their settings, and I needed to go into a setting to change that to make sure that it wasn't just going to friends, it was going to the public as well. All right. So that should all be working. Just check one more. We're live on. Yep, that's cool. All right, so we're working on everything. We're cooking on gas. All right, so podcast planning for episodes 8, 9, and 10. And I'm doing some social media planning for March because if you don't know what you should be implementing into your social media strategy is effectively at the start of the month, you dedicate 2 to 3 days to film, edit, and schedule all of your social media content for that calendar month. It's much easier. It seems overwhelming, and I get why you might feel like that's overwhelming, but it's the most effective way that you can get content out there because you're not overwhelming yourself trying to play catch up every single day. You're not waking up thinking that you need to create content. You're dedicating 3 days rather than every day to social media content. So these lives, if you are new and if you are stumbling across this account, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, I'm going live every day, Monday to Friday, maybe on the weekends, to test out this kind of format in 2024, which I'm predicting is going to be pretty powerful in the way that people absorb content from the public side to the creator side, or the public side to the business side. So for the next 60 days, I'm showing up, turning up, and giving an insight. It's what it's like to be an agency owner, what it's like to be in the social media realms, what it's like to create all of that content, schedule all of that content, meetings, all of that stuff. Everything's going to be there. Probably not meetings. That's not going to be on display, but it could be in the background. Who knows? Whatever is there is going to be an open book. I just feel like that is a cool way to just connect with audiences, connect with people, and also at the same time, I have to do the work anyway. Why not have a live in the background? I actually tested this out last time for my first live, and I think I managed from that one live to get like 6 videos. How many did I get back? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so 10 clips from that one live that I did last week. If you haven't, just scroll back on my news feed or my account, and you'll see that live. If you're on Instagram, unlucky. For some reason, it didn't save. Ricky on Instagram, Minnie on Instagram, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. And yeah, so I managed to get like 6 videos made, so it's cool. So yeah, this is just going to be playing in the background. I'm going to be working away on some tasks, and in the meantime, if you're on any of these accounts, just leave a comment. I can see the comments on YouTube and Facebook. I can't see on Instagram, but I can just pull that Instagram feed up. So if you do have any questions or queries, let me know. The most thing I'm interested in is YouTube Shorts is pretty popular on YouTube at the moment. So it's the TikTok and Instagram Reel version of for YouTube. One of the things that they're saying is that if you're doing vertical streams like I'm doing now, you tend to be found in the algorithm a lot easier, which is going to be interesting to experiment with. And obviously, like if you are in the social media space, you're a business owner, like one of the biggest things you need to get grips to, or get your head around, is like really everything is experimenting. When you're trying to find that next trend or next formula that's going to work well with your demographic, your business, one of the best things I can tell you literally is that you just need to be starting to test things and seeing how they react with your audience. Like there's so many gurus or coaches out there that will say you have to do these different things, but realistically it comes down to you need to be testing things in your audiences and your networks, and you need to be testing them relatively quickly. Often the businesses and the creators that take too long to implement things or strategies because they're worried or they're scared tend to be the ones that are left behind. Like I fully get if you've got people that need to sign things off and all of that stuff. Trust me, I fully understand that. But at the same time, you need to be implementing ideas and strategies as soon as you physically can. Don't be worried about the outcome so much. You need to, understand that that outcome is based on analytics and all of that stuff. And realistically, you can get all of that analytics and understand what worked and what didn't. Okay. Cool. So the first thing I do when I'm, let's start with the podcast episodes first. So part of this live is just going over the podcast episodes. So we're going to plan out episode 8, 9, and 10. I like doing things in threes, just easier to get my head around everything. So let's recap over what we've released so far. So our first episode was digital platforms. So really just giving an understanding of what you can do, how you can do it, and what kind of is the best strategy. Then we went into organic social media. Then we went into paid social media. Then we went into Meta, which is Facebook, or formerly known as Facebook, and the future of that platform. Then we went into TikTok for 2024. Then we went into Instagram, and then we went over a triad of triumph is what I call it. So the triad of triumph is effectively value, authenticity, and engagement. So really focusing on those three things when you think about social media is really important, because if you just continually keep jumping on trends, you tend to lose that authenticity because it's not really lining up with your values. And also at the same time, are you adding value to your customers? Are you adding value to your business? Are you adding value to your industry if you continually keep jumping on these trends? And those trends are simply like using trending sounds or using those trends of doing different filters or different animations. Like they're great, but are they actually doing those three things? Doing different filters or different animations. Cool. I'm just checking that live works. So like I said, if you've got any questions, if you stumble across my live, just comment below. I know it tends to be scary commenting on people's lives all the time, but let me just move that random one. Cool. All right. So yeah, like I said, really the triad, what I think about is value, authenticity, and engagement. I go deeper into that in the podcast episode. So the cool thing about this podcast, if you haven't stumbled across it, is it's bite-sized pieces of information. That's why we called it Business Bytes, Social Media Uncovered. I wanted to really differentiate the podcast space of being this long form content, which we are going to have episodes that are going to be longer, but the majority of the daily episodes are going to be between 4 to 5 minutes, because I know how busy my industry is. I know how busy my clients are that we serve. So the last thing I'm going to do is create a piece of content or create a place where people are just going to get overwhelmed with more information. I think the podcast space is amazing, and I think it's going to be really powerful this year in 2024. But the issue with that is that people just get oversaturated with information. And what I want to get people to do is take more action and not be more informed, because you can be more informed for your whole entire life, but the action that you take is the actual success that you actually get within your business. Cool. All right. So those are the episodes that we've done so far. Like I said, I will link all of the stuff below in the live stream when I can. I wonder if I can. I think I can share. think I can do that. I don't think it's going to work though, because I won't do that because you can't actually click on the link. So, right, yeah. So those are the episodes. So now we need to do episode number 8, 9, and 10. So the way that I do that is I effectively start from understanding what the problems currently are. Like, are we going to create a piece of content that is going to add value to the consumer or the customer or the person listening? The best thing about this podcast and my podcast is that this is completely free. We're never going to try and get people to pay for this podcast. It's on platforms that include subscriptions outside of our control, but at the same time, majority of people have Spotify or at least Apple Music. And some of this, if you go to my website, mptagencies.com, all of those episodes are on there via the blog posts that we associate with the podcast episodes. So you can go and watch those for free or listen to those for free. We're also in the process in the next couple of weeks, booking guests, booking people to try and get episodes with. That is going to probably be the most time-consuming part of the whole podcast process because it tends to take a while to get people's schedules. But what I do with the podcast episodes is I try and plan out from that triad. So where am I adding value? Where am I being authentic? And how am I creating engagement via those episodes? Because again, this is one of the most intimate ways you can connect with someone on a podcast, because you're going to someone, you're with someone when they're going to work, you're with someone when they're on a train or walking to work or at work or wherever they are. They're relaxing and they're enjoying their time. So it's always a pleasure to be connecting with those individuals at that time. So what I try and do is I say, what's currently the pain points of let's say someone that is, let's say, having a problem in social media. What are people suffering with? So the easiest way that I tend to do this from a research perspective, without going to the lengths of getting a specific researcher, which eventually would be the play, is I go into larger creators, or let's say virality creators in terms of their videos doing tremendously well in my niche, and going into, let's say, the comment section and finding out what the problems are that those individuals are having. Because often you'll find that the people doing the most tend to have the least amount of time. And for some reason, it confuses me a little bit about how they don't get someone to comment on their behalf, but maybe they do. I don't know. But the most important thing you can do there is it gives you a vault of information around what are those people saying in those people's comment sections, because they don't have the time to come back and reply to these individuals. They will eventually. They're often, creating a headline or a topic line or anything like that. So what I do is I go into the comment sections of anyone's videos in my niche that I value, or I feel like my audience would exist in. Go into those comment sections and find out what the commonality is in that comment section. So for example, I'm in a video right now and the commonality is trends. People want to understand trends. And then I think I found the one that I wanted to do off podcast. So effectively the question is that trends, evergreen versus trending content. So for me, that sparked interest, and there was a commonality. I knew that there was authority around that because the majority of likes were coming to that comment. So another great example is once you find this comment that you feel like you can create content around on an external account, you need to make sure that that's of value. And the easiest way that social media platforms do this is that they have a like button or like a heart or a like or a thumbs up right beside that comment. So if that comment is of value to other people, and let's say a person doesn't want to comment that as well, they're going to like that. They're going to engage with that comment. So I feel like this has got enough of value for me to create a podcast episode around. So then what I do is I just note that down, which I've already done. But my first episode, my new episode that's going to come out tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, I can't remember what day it's going to be scheduled now. But it's going to be on trends, which is going to be then talked into versus evergreen content versus trending content. So I'm going to then start planning that out. And remember, like, all we're looking for is a 4 or 5 minute episode. We're not looking for any longer. We're not looking for anything too complex, because again, we're only looking for a 4 or 5 minute episode. So hopefully, you got some value of that. I think it's a really slept on. Strategy, because obviously, like, it's a free strategy. It doesn't. The only thing it takes you is time. So realistically, there's really no problem. I'm just gonna double check that my Instagram live is working. Bum, bum, bum. All right, so what we want to do is, from that topic name, I then want to try and figure out a start, a middle, and an end. So obviously with podcasts, you have a tendency to go on tangents, go longer than you need to be going. So you really want to identify those points. Also, if you are watching this live or on a replay, let me know if you are in the mindset around or have questions around that evergreen content versus kind of trending content. Much better. All right. So once I've got an idea around what I want to do, and I have done some preparation around the topic ideas, I then kind of expand on it. So the trending topics or trending content that I want to focus on is something called newsjacking, hashtag campaigns, memes and challenges, and influencer collaborations. The reason why I want to come up with the way that I've worded those things is simply because when you're thinking about a podcast episode versus like a talking head video or a YouTube video or a visual video, people can you can express what you're meaning around the topics. Where if you're talking to someone through their headphones or their car or any of those things, you've got to be a little bit more hard to explain, visually allowing them to visualize what you're actually saying. So newsjacking for me is a word that I've used for a while. It effectively just means when I'm creating, when someone is creating content around something that has happened. So think about, let's say, for example, the tweet that, there was a tweet at the Super Bowl, I think it was from Oreo or something like that, when there was a new Super Bowl blackout. So think about like any event that happens within the world that is relevant to your industry, of course, because remember, we go back to that value authenticity and engagement. You want to make sure you're kind of jumping on the fact that there's something happening in that industry. Let's try and get some information out there on behalf of our business or our content strategy, and that's what I kind of call newsjacking. Hashtag campaigns has always been very powerful, especially in the last year or so. And within our agency, I've spent a lot of time figuring out how we can create campaigns around that. So what I mean by that is effectively you're creating a hashtag, and then because it's clickable, people then click into that hashtag, and believe it or not, it actually happens. And then people will see content from exactly Bradley. How you doing, brother? Hope you're still doing well over there and killing it. What I wanted to do is create content around hashtags. So for example, let's just say for this example, it's FB Live, which is Facebook Live, or for the sake of this, that's the campaign. And then every single time I put the hashtag in, it's going to attribute to every single live video that I've uploaded on Instagram or on TikTok or on Facebook that was attributed to my live episodes. So it effectively stores on your behalf all of the content that attributes to that specific hashtag. So I like doing that, and it's like a library of social proof for clients. So you can create you can create a hashtag about anything. Normally, in terms of it being a trending content situation, you want to create it to be relative to a trend or something that's happening currently. For this example, I just use FB Live, which is Facebook Live. That would mean that every single time I upload a episode or a Facebook Live on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, you click on that hashtag, it's going to show all of my Facebook Lives. So it just means that instead of me trying to steer that to anyone, people can click on that themselves and they can find all of the social proof of what's happening. So obviously, if it's to do with trending topics, you want it to be around a challenge that's coming up. If you're a gym, you want it to be if you've got a skincare regime, it could be around a certain routine that they do, a morning routine or afternoon or a nighttime routine with your business name in front of it, or a specific play on words. All of that stuff plays into it. So that's why I call it around, or that's why I say like hashtag campaigns. Obviously, memes and challenges is always trending. So there's always a new meme coming up. There's always a new challenge coming up. If you're looking for great meme templates, go to CapCut. They always have new or relevant new or relevant like templates that you can use for those memes, so you can effectively just drop them in and then have a green screen behind them, and you can put your product or campaign around that as well. And obviously, fourth and finally, influencer collaborations. So influencer collaborations are an absolute no-brainer, but they're one of the most expensive ways that you can create trending topics or trending campaigns, because that influencer has built their audience, built their pitch deck, built their followers, built all of that stuff with their time and energy, so they're going to charge for that. So you want to make sure that, first of all, you can track that pretty easily, which is why hashtags work well with that influencer collaborations. But also at the same time, being trending and being that part of the episode, trending content, you want to be jumping on the back of a trending situation. The best example I can give you is whenever there's a NFL draft, NBA draft, anything major in the sports industries, businesses always jump on and create a trending hashtag, but they also collaborate with that influencer. I think the prime example is when Baker Mayfield got drafted. I can't remember what year, for the Browns. Yeah, for the Browns. Nike created a whole campaign around Baker Mayfield. Obviously, like the no-brainers are Ronaldo, Messi in the football industry or the football scene. You've got Apple, for example, in the tech space, using influencers now, like iJustine, Marcus Brownlee, all of those big quote-unquote influencers in the tech space. Apple are literally giving them early access, or they're taking them to the events, because they know that they're going to be able to take that audience to that event, and that's going to be why they're going to be able to sell those products. So hopefully you understand all of those four, but just to cover up again, trending content, what we would focus on, I would focus on newsjacking, hashtag campaigns, memes and challenges, and influencer collaborations. So those are the four. A lot of information, kind of cool that you can watch this video and kind of replay it over and over and over again. But at the same time, this is why I feel like this is going to be a really cool episode to record in the podcast. So this is going to come out later this week. So like I said, Business Bytes Social Media Uncovered is our podcast. Go and subscribe on any major streaming platform, including YouTube, music, all of those platforms, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, all of that stuff, because it's going to be really, really cool to see that. I think we literally got our first UK viewer yesterday. We're in America. We're in, obviously, Oceania, between Australia and New Zealand. So, yeah, really cool. What I can do, actually, at the end of this live, if you stay all the way to the end, I'll show you the analytics as well. It's nothing major, but, it's cool to just share those little wins and little milestones. So moving on to evergreen content. So just as a recap, if you are tuning in, I'm just literally drafting out our next episode. I'm going to do 3 of these and then record all of them off live, obviously, but I'm going to go through this whole process, because as I do this, it's also really cool teaching moments around social media and all of that stuff as well. So we've just gone over trending content. Scroll back in the live, or if you're watching this as a recording, go back as well. What we're doing is the evergreen content. So how-to guides, listicles, testimonials, and case studies in FAQs. So realistically, you can start seeing what evergreen and trending content is. So trending content has got a lifespan, so it's going to only work for a certain amount of time. And then evergreen content is going to be forever, or what another word for forever is evergreen. So it's going to be there forever, and it's always going to be relevant to your audience. So the first one is absolutely no-brainer. Like, I think majority of people are going to be able to get evergreen content pretty easily. How-to guides, which I think is so underutilized by so many businesses and even creators, like having a how-to guide around what those people solve. They offer value and can establish your brand's authority in your field. So that's effectively how I explain how-to guides. So if you are interested in how the mind works around podcast episodes, what I've learned over the years, we build podcasts and we script podcast episodes and we produce podcast episodes as part of our agency. What I always think about is, how can you explain your point in the most understanding way, so that person that's driving, or that person that's walking, or that person that's on the bus, or that person that's about to board a plane, or that person that is on a plane, that person that's in a lounge or got their headphones on, how can that person understand your point at that time? It's most important because the difference between podcasts and that type of content between any other social media content is that person's understanding. They're not going to sit there for 30 minutes and listen to your point. If they're not understanding, they're just going to drop off and become bored. Where on a YouTube video or a Facebook video, you've got a little bit more time in terms of visually cueing that person with either B-roll or A-roll or anything like that. So how-to guides, coming back to the point, evergreen content is a must. Listicles, I back in 2015, 2016, I think I was the person that created the most listicles ever. I created ebooks after ebook after ebook, and if you scroll back, especially on my Facebook or even my Instagram, further enough, you'll see all of those things. I was I had the keto planners, the 4 ways to lose body fat, all of those planners, because obviously when I first started in business, I started as a face-to-face personal trainer before that business went online. Now I've got that company, and then I've also got my social media marketing agency with MPT agencies, but I still even use listicles and how-to guides. They just tend to be internal rather than external. So I probably wouldn't recommend creating listicles as like a social media piece of content for the member of the public that hasn't met you before, which means pretty much 90% of social media content these days. I would save that for internals or maybe even lead magnets. Lead magnets tend to do well. I think Radley, who joined just before on the Instagram part of this live, he just released an ebook over there. So if you just go over there, check his ebook out. He released a really cool one in the fitness space, so that's cool. And he's taking advantage of that as well. But yeah, listicles work well, but I think listicles work well for the social media piece of content in ebooks or something that they can download and consume later on. Testimonials and case studies. Now, I feel like testimonials and case studies are in like a very gray area at the moment, because I think that it's very hard to get a person to pay attention to a testimonial for long enough for them to consume the content. You're also getting a case study or a testimonial from an untrained individual. If you're lucky enough to get someone on screen that's really, really good, that's awesome. But like from someone that is myself, that's probably created 300 or 400 case studies and testimonials across the board for our businesses and clients. I think the hardest thing we run into is trying to get a person to be confident enough to tell us what they want to tell us, not what we would want to hear. I even had this conversation yesterday to an individual around a video that we filmed for a client, letting them know that we want you to tell us everything that you're feeling, not everything that you feel like we want you to tell us. Because effectively what I'm trying to get across to them is a person is not going to see that video and relate to it if it feels like it's scripted, if it feels like it's not authentic. And coming back to that triad of information, if there's no value, no authenticity, and no engagement, someone's not going to pay attention to it. So what I want to do is focus on the fact that I can allow that person to connect with the other individual by just being really natural. So when you are thinking about testimonials and case studies, you need to think about how that is going to be portrayed from the everyday person. Don't require that person to read off a script. Don't allow that person to just give you 20 seconds of information that everyone's going to know about you by going to your website. Really allow that person to tell their story, allow their connection with the audience member that's watching that video to connect with them as well. And by proxy, that person is giving information about how valuable you are as an individual, a gym, a business, or a provider. So that's how I would explain how you should be able to create testimonials and case studies now. But that would be my third point in the evergreen content. I think they're amazing once you have them, but the distribution of testimonials, I believe, is underrated or underperforming currently right now, because people really haven't spent the time to think about how that person can allow that the audience member that's watching that person's content for the first time, how is that going to relate? And a great way of doing this is really understanding about what that conversation is in the testimonial and your customer avatar or your unique selling point, which is your USP. You know, what is that in relation to the testimonial? How can that testimonial encourage that individual or that ideal customer or that USP to convert. And then obviously fourth and finally, FAQs. So answering common questions around your industry or product can attract consistent traffic and position you as a reliable source of information. So that's kind of what I've sketched out. Just preference. I didn't come up with this all on this specific live. I'm working on this episode alongside this live. So before you think I'm a wizard that can type 1,000 miles an hour, no chance. But I would put myself up there as being a way that I can describe a lot of things intricately on both podcast spaces and social media spaces. So what I like doing as well, and this could help you in a video space, is having the intro and the outro. So you should have an intro and outro and a mid-roll in a podcast episode. Mid-roll is a perfect opportunity for advertisers or yourself to advertise. Normally, for example, on Buzzsprout, which is a provider we use, they only allow you to have a mid-roll on episodes that are 23 minutes or longer. But the mid-roll is really good. It breaks an episode up. It gives someone a little bit of a time to just refocus, but also at the same time, it's a great opportunity to get advertisers in to promote products that you feel like the audience would benefit from. But also, as you're starting off, similar to how the Business Bytes Social Media Uncovered podcast is, those mid-rolls are just going to be advertisements for our agency, our products, our webinars, our lead magnets, and so forth. So, don't put them off because you feel like you don't have the advertisers yet. You've got a really good opportunity to get some really key dates out to the members of the public as well. So coming back to what I was meaning, after that intro, what I would say is this is like the sub intro. So I normally come in with like a, hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Bytes Social Media Uncovered. I'm your host, Matt Mackay, and I'm here to guide you through the labyrinth of social media marketing. So normally I really focus on trying to put a keyword in there that might seem over the top, that might seem elaborated, but I tend to try and have that last line here to guide you through a labyrinth of social media marketing. I try and make that my engagement piece. So the value obviously is the value that I'm going to have in the episode, which is going to come later. The engagement is going to play on the word that I make up. So like the labyrinth of social media marketing or that line. And then the authenticity is that, I'm showing up every single day to release these episodes and I'm authentic the way that I explain things, and I'm always relatively the same. So I tend to try and keep the intro or sub-intro relatively similar, but I always have a play on words. And then I also always explain what that episode is going to tell them. I think 2 or 3 years ago, you could get away with just clickbaiting and leading them on a path, like saying, hey, if you stay to the end of this podcast episode, I'm going to give you 10 free X, Y, and Zs. But I feel like at this day and age, people need to be told exactly what they want, they need to be told what this is going to help them fix straight away. Otherwise, they're just going to go find something else. So what I say in this episode, as I say today, we're exploring the tug of war between trending social media content and evergreen social media content and how you can leverage both types effectively. So within that effective sentence, I've told them this is what this episode is going to have. This is what this episode is going to entail. This is how this problem is going to be fixed for you. If this isn't going to be an episode for you, no worries. You just pause it, go find another episode. If this is for you, then this is the perfect podcast episode for you. And I think the one thing that I want to preference here is that actually came from my obsession with podcasts. Like I've been listening to podcasts for probably like 2 years every single day. And I learned that really, really well from Diary CEO and the Property Academy podcast. So the Property Academy podcast is in New Zealand, like actual owned podcast, which is pretty cool. But Diary of a CEO is by Stephen Bartlett, massive person, influence in the world of tech and social media. So if you don't know who he is, just Google him, you'll find him out. But that's one of the big takeaways for the last 2 years. I found the real popular and engaged podcasts are the ones that give that kind of introduction. That's how I've kind of preferenced it, and I only really change 2 or 3 different lines in that sub intro every single time. Then probably I would also say the next learning curve for me, if you don't know, I've launched a podcast before internally like years ago. One of the things that I failed to do was really address these things, and that's why I've learned how to do it now, and that's why I've helped hundreds do the same. But I think the next step is what I do is I try and give a synopsis of the points that we're going to come across, and then obviously I go down to those points that I want to explain, because I think if I can't give actionable insights of the information I've just told, then all I'm telling people is information that they could have gone to Google and found. I think, even my explanation of newsjacking, hashtag campaigns, memes and challenges, influencer collaborations is a unique insight into what that would be. You could get someone else that could say the same thing, but they would have a different spin on it. So really, majority of information in the social media world is accessible via Google. All we do as agencies and influencers and social media people allow that person to interpretate that same information in a way that is authentic to that person. So yeah, cool. All right, so that's pretty much episode 8 done. I've got another 2 to do. So what I do is I just try and what do I do? I need to give that a title. One of the best things I learned early on is that you need to save every single thing you do. Like I made one video a couple of weeks ago when UMG pulled their contract with TikTok, and I made a video a year ago, pretty much to that date actually, that I was predicting that trending audio was going to get a lot of videos muted, because obviously the trending audio is based on contracts between people that you're not privy to. So you're effectively creating work on behalf of someone else, but you don't get any of the royalties or the rights to it if they pull that contract. Because if you don't know, the bottom of that video, it'll just come up saying this video has been muted because of copyright, or muted because it no longer exists, or whatever. So, if you're using trending content structure, that's fine. But if you're using evergreen, detrimental to your content cycle. So yeah, I just think if I didn't save that video on an external place, I couldn't have made that video because I wouldn't have had that content. So I think also you need to back everything up. You need to make documents of everything, because you could have, you could create how-to guides from the information you're talking about 6 months ago, and it will save you a lot of time. So that's episode 8 done. Let's start on episode 9. So I use the same strategy for pretty much everything. Again, like one of the most important things you need to think of as a business owner or as a content creator is, just because you think it's a good idea doesn't mean it's going to be a good piece of content. So I'm not guaranteed that episode is going to do well. I'm not even guaranteed that the video that I'm going to create from this live stream that's talking about that podcast episode is going to do well. But it's going to be a lot better, or have a lot higher odds of doing well, because I haven't just created the idea internally in my head. I've created a synopsis around what I wanted to actually create, and I've validated it by going to the industry, finding a comment that validates it, and the validation around it is other people are engaging with that comment, so therefore it's going to have some merit long term. You need to get away from the ego of being a business owner or a social media content, or even sometimes an influencer, of understanding that no matter, even if not every idea in your head is a good idea. And trust me, I've been privy to this in 2015, 2016, 2017. If you go to any of my videos, the ideas in my head, although had the right meaning, I should have probably had more idea around. Just because I think it's a good idea doesn't mean it's going to be a good idea. So that content could have been better if I just really validated or had that same framework that I have now. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have had the framework I have now, because I wouldn't have gone through that stuff. So there is a finite line between those two things. So again, all I do is I just go to social media, and with the power of pre-planning, I can actually go and validate my ideas. So that's where like content consumption, being a person that consumes content or being a producer of content, is differentiated, right? Like you can consume content, but as long as you've got an idea around how you're going to validate that content, and all of that stuff, then that's fine. Like I just literally, I go through my day, spend a certain amount of time consuming content, but also part of that time I'm also understanding how can I create content around those validated ideas. And unless you've got a marketing budget the size of Apple, you don't have the money to spend time validating these ideas that you have in your head, because you just don't have the money in order to get it in front of the right people. Like you could have thousands of dollars, but you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to validate those ideas. And often the people that have 40, 50, 60, 70, 100,000 million followers are going to validate those ideas for you for free. You just need to know where to look. So another really good site, just as a caveat, is a site called Answer the People, sorry. I always get that name wrong. Let's see if I can... all right, let's get rid of... wonder if I can just change it from here. I've made a scene for it. That's why. I was going to show you. I'm just trying to figure out how I can. All right, let's go back to... This is normally my editing screen that I sometimes share when I'm editing a video. But for the sake of this video, let's just go... primary display. No, that's the wrong one. There we go. All right, so you can see that there. I don't necessarily know how well you can see that because I'm just experimenting with... oh yeah, you can relatively see it. I just want to be able to give a view that you can see me and also the screen, so I can do a lot of talking things. So Answer the People is like a great site to validate your ideas. So just to give an example without going into too much detail, let's just put in TikTok, right? And let's just go, and I'm in New Zealand, I'm based in New Zealand. Let's go search for what people are looking for. So when I was talking about validating ideas, maybe you don't have the time or the attention span at this new time of your kind of content creation career, Answer the People is a great place to go, because you can effectively just create your topics around, let's say you're wanting to release a podcast, or you want to create content in a vertical or horizontal form, whether it's video or photos. You can kind of create content around here. So you can figure out like the search volume. Obviously this is a pretty bad example because it's just TikTok, but let's just say let's just even just go trends, right? No, that's not good. Oh, God, I got you. I know why that's asking me now. All right, that's not going to work. Good idea, not going to work. All right, so yeah, anyway, Answer the People is going to be the place that you want to go to create an account and just go from there. I feel like that's probably a good starting point, rather than going through videos and not understanding what to look for. It's going to be much easier to understand. It is, you can do a free account. I didn't want to go in and log in and all of that stuff when I'm on a live stream. But I will, if you want me to later on, I will come back to it in another video. And I will be fully logged in and so forth. So that's all good. But yeah, like I said, it's a great place to understand search volume. It's understanding like, is this going to be a good idea? So just to validate it even more, you want to be looking for, based on your current demographic. So for example, if you're wanting to hit New Zealand or Australasia, you need to know the kind of capacity of those places. And then based on the search volume, how many people based on that are searching for it. Then you can kind of understand it from there. So yeah, Answer the People is another place to go to, but a quick and easy way to do it without even putting any details in. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of their reels will come up with viral videos of some sort in your niche or in your audience. Go into their comment section, find out what those people are asking, and understand you need to validate that by, are people commenting on that comment, or are they liking it or engaging with it? So the second topic that I want to talk about, and I'm a massive believer in this, is newsletters. So again, businesses, content creators, this is a really, really, really underused resource, because people just think newsletters are for promotional pieces of content. But when done right, it can just be another presence or another part of your omnipresent strategy when you're building a business or a product. Let's say you have an ebook, a newsletter is going to be or an email list is going to be a really vital part of that. Every time someone downloads your ebook, they're going to have to put an email address in. What do you do with that email address? You can then go into things like ActiveCampaign, which I can link below if you need to. Just type in the comment section email or ActiveCampaign, and I can give you a link to go to that. That's the one I would suggest using as an email provider. But you'd go to an email provider or a CRM, and you'll take that customer on what's called a customer journey. That customer journey is going to figure out, based on that person's problem that you're trying to solve, that you're going to provide emails, or you're going to provide touch points on that cycle or that customer journey. That's one way of looking at how you can use emails. Newsletters, by the way, is just a broad topic. People know that because everyone sends out newsletters. Often the relationship between that and what people expect that to be is like that once a month email that just comes out randomly and updates you on certain touch points. That's great, but that's only one facet. What I would suggest doing is understanding, how can I get into the person's inbox and be that person's provider of service when that person needs me the most. So let's relate it back to, let's say, the fitness industry. If you're a personal trainer and you need more clients and more income, what I would suggest doing is building an email list, because what you have is you have an absolute gold mine of individuals that need your help, which is called a commercial gym or a gym floor. You go to that gym floor with a clipboard and you create a understanding of the offer you're going to provide for that person, and you're going to give that thing away for free. Let's say it's a consult, let's say it's a screening, let's say it's a solution to majority of that person's problems. Now, you're only going to go up to those people if they fit your ideal customers category. If they say yes, you're going to throw them off balance, and you're going to say, I'm not going to sell you anything. All I need you to do is provide an email address to get this specific item that I'm going to give you, or the specific resource. You give that person the clipboard, they put their email address on, they tick a box, whatever. You can digitalize it by an iPad or whatever, but the way that I've structured it back in the day and what I've created systems from is a clipboard, because it's more connectable, it's more relatable, it's more human. So once you've done that, you've got email addresses. You start doing this over and over and over and over and over again. You start building what's called an email list. And then what happens is you send out a daily email. Now, you might not be able to start daily because you might not have the confidence, you might not have the quote unquote time, but it's important that you can consistently turn up. So once that email starts to build, right, you might go from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70. You start getting all of these emails, you start interacting with these people, you start getting into these people's inboxes. And why I say that is that it might take you 2 or 3 months, right, of sending these daily emails, Monday to Sunday. But that one time that person looks in the mirror and doesn't like the person they see is going to be the time that your email is going to show up in that inbox. And coming back to our 3 points, value, authenticity, and engagement. You're creating massive value in these daily emails. You're being authentic because you're showing up in these things, and you're creating engagement because you're engaging with these people in one of the most intimate ways possible via email and so forth. These people get hundreds of thousands of emails. If they're opening your email, they're opening it for a reason. So that's how I would build an email list. Of, let's say I was in a commercial gym, like if that's what I was doing on the gym floor. If I was a influencer, for example, and I wanted to attract more brands, I would go and find a way to get into a room with individuals that can make decisions, or know people that can make decisions, and I would gather around the same priority. Here's my pitch deck, here's blah, 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 blah. All I need is your email address. I'm not asking for anything more. I just need your email address. And then I would start emailing and emailing and emailing and emailing. Now, every industry is going to have its pros and cons in running the strategy. You can adapt the strategy to pretty much any niche. And I've tried it in 15 different niches across the board, tailoring it for different ways. But at the same, the most important thing is that you're showing up. You're showing up every single day. You're building authority. You're building connections. And you're following those 3 frameworks. So that's what I would do to effectively build that email list. And then what I would understand is that why I want to create an episode around newsletters is effectively, I've probably much just covered exactly what the first part of why I feel like an email list is really underused is if you see the current trend of where the likes of big companies, what kind of companies fall into that demographic? Anyway, the big companies, you'll start seeing more and more and more as things go up in cost, relying on different mediums that cost less. So for example, running Facebook ads has never been more expensive. Running TikTok ads are becoming more expensive. Running Pinterest ads are quite cheap. Running Snapchat ads are quite cheap. Sending emails, practically free, right? You're paying a certain fee every month to, let's say, the likes of ActiveCampaign, and you're getting in return a lot of engagement, a lot of connection points, and a lot of touch points. So when I say touch point, the average person needs to be engaged with around 9 times before they make a decision, right? Give or take a few things here and there. An attention span less than a goldfish of around 2 seconds, it's quite hard to continually do that. So volume is better. So if you can create a social media post on your profiles, if you can send a daily email, if you can create a podcast or so forth, you're multiplying the effect you have on an individual when it comes to understanding when that person needs you the most, you're going to show up for that individual. So a lot of people have a short-term view. I have a long-term view. Some people have a micro view. I have a macro view around how social media is supposed to be introduced to an individual. So it's really important that you have all of these frameworks when you think about it. You don't have to have everything at once. I didn't have everything at once. But as you develop as a business owner, as a content creator, as a social media person or individual that's trying to grow somewhere, whether it's a following, whether it's a client list, whether it's a profit loss, whatever industry you're trying to do, it always comes back to the same frameworks. So the reason why I want to create this episode is I'm noticing in the same framework that I used in the first example, that more and more and more and more people are talking about newsletters, email lists. I'm seeing more and more and more and more larger accounts emphasize newsletters or email lists. So for me, with the current topics, I feel like it's a really good episode. So what I'm going to do, same framework, same process, going to create a script, which, I've already done, and I can walk you through the framework. So I've just got to edit a few things to make it tangible. But yeah, like obviously it's really, really important. I think it's always I always go back to email lists as well. I feel like, if the internet turned off, it's better to own the traffic than it is to rely on someone else's server to provide you the traffic. So one of the biggest people I follow in the marketing space is someone called Russell Brunson. He talks about 3 types of traffic: the traffic you own, the traffic you buy, and the traffic you control. So the traffic you own is an email list, because you've gone from buying that traffic to now owning that traffic, because an email list is effectively a CSV file, and you can do a lot of different things with an email list. So that becomes a traffic you buy to the traffic you own. The traffic you control is by getting someone else's traffic. For example, the first example I used in this scenario, if you go to a larger account and you start engaging in the comment section with that person, or you start engaging with the other people that are commenting in that person, you're now taking that traffic that they're owning or they control to you, which is mean effectively, you're taking the traffic, controlling where the traffic goes, and they're going to your platform. So again, that's something you can really use when you're smaller in terms of growing your accounts as well. So, like I said, it's important to think about these things, and it's important to understand that you need to realize that there is going to be a point where the likes of Instagram, Meta, TikTok, they're not going to be the main way of communicating with your audience. If that was the case, the likes of the Vision Pro, the likes of virtual reality, all of that stuff, I would assume that the transition to that is not going to be powered directly on a platform like Instagram, Meta, and TikTok, right? So how do you survive that wave? So yeah, I've pretty much told you that episode, because I'm out of all the episodes that I've probably created so far, this is the one that sticks out to me the most. I think like the clipboard method is effectively the way that we've framed it in our SOPs, or our internal material is giveaways and competitions, because it's the easiest way to make individual understand what we're talking about, rather than saying that they have to give something away for free, or they have to do this, or they have to do that. It's literally just a competition and a giveaway. You're running a competition to win a certain outcome, get as many email addresses as you can, giveaways, give as many as you can. And if you are a personal trainer or a gym owner that is reluctant to do this, I did this for 3+ years in my first, face-to-face career. And I mean, I was very, very fortunate that I worked at an amazing establishment with amazing business owners, amazing personal trainers, and amazing clients and gym members. So I think my probably experience is a little bit better than the average commercial large-scale gym. There's a little bit more requirements. Like, I was very, very fortunate. But at the same time, I know it works because we've implemented it hundreds of times. So whatever I'm saying, I'm not saying because I feel like that's going to work, especially in this episode's outline. I know it works because we've tested it. Cool. All right. So like I said, I've covered this in the first example. My intro or sub-intro is the same. My outro is the same, or my sub-outro is the same. I don't really know why I called it sub-outro, but you get what I'm saying. The importance of having that unilateral connection is that people know exactly from a listen that that's what they're getting. They know that that's you. It's the whole branding effect that I talked about when I launched this podcast. I made a TikTok about this. Just still checking that the audio works. It's the whole branding effect, right? Like, you want to have this whole unilateral approach to all of the stuff you're doing. Everything wants to be this. You want everything to be the same framework. So the only real things that you're changing, or the only work you're doing, is changing the middle section of every episode or everything. So that's why often I tell people that aren't used to social media and the schedule, create a social media calendar, and also create templates of your social media structure. So I've actually got a social media calendar probably that I can give people if they need it. So just comment social media calendar in the comment section, whatever platform you're on, and I can give you that for free. But the other thing that I like telling people is that if you just look at the columns of a social media platform like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, actually different, but let's just say Instagram and TikTok, they've got 3 pillars. So if you just create 3 topics or pillar topics, you just create 3, 6, 9, 12, however many content pillars in a 7-day week you need. You just plot them into each content pillar. And it becomes a lot easier because you're only thinking of 3 different areas of content, rather than the endless amounts of content that you could be creating that your mind tends to go to when you've got free reign. In these lives, I definitely will go quiet sometimes because I will get distracted because I'll see a notification come up on my phone and I will just stop. So yeah, all right. So the structure that we want to have, right? Like the line that I changed, in that line that I like changing, is that, we're demystifying the world of social media marketing for you. So that's allowing them to understand what we're doing as a business. We're pivoting slightly from our social media to a marketing tool. And then that's been around a little bit. We've talked about social media tools or platforms that have been around, but newsletters or emails have been around for a lot longer than some of those platforms. There was emails or newsletters being sent before Instagram existed. There was newsletters and being sent in some form of capacity before Facebook even. So I wanted to touch on that point to make sure that building up the suspense, creating that engagement out of that triad. And that's why I said, it's been a little bit around a little bit longer, but it's just as powerful, which is newsletters. We're also touching the importance of not just newsletters, but growing an email list. So pretty much what I said in that first statement of what I was talking about is exactly what this episode is going to cover. So, newsletters are a tried and tested way to maintain consistent touch points. Again, I talked about touch points, so nothing that I'm not covering, right? So effectively what I said in this live, I'm saying in a podcast episode. And then at the end of this, hopefully if I remember, I'll give you the strategy that we use for this podcast to grow this podcast rapidly or quicker than the average podcast because of leveraging a network that's already existing, and it's not traditional social media. So that should hopefully work for you if you're someone that's releasing podcast episodes and you're kind of getting annoyed by the views. So again, I'm talking about pillars, and like the first one I talk about is how we should be using newsletters effectively. I talk about educating your audience, promote your products and services, share your company news, provide exclusive offers. Now that could sound like a snore fest, but remember, the way I explain things in a podcast is so much different to when I explain things in a Instagram reel or TikTok reel, because I've either got longer or I've got shorter. What audience I'm talking to versus what audience I'm talking to on Instagram and TikTok and Meta, is so much different to the person that's probably listening to a podcast. So I talked about educating your audience, promoting your services and products, sharing your company news, and providing exclusive offers. So providing exclusive offers is like e-commerce. Sharing company news is like a corporate law firm, legal, dentistry kind of industry. Promoting your products or services, personal training, service-based industries, gyms, barber shops, all of that stuff. Educating your audience is creators, influencers, all of that stuff, right? So you can see how all of those demographics are covered in those 4 points. So then I move on to obviously like talking about how we can grow those email lists, and that's effectively what I call lead magnets. I was talking about that before, having an opportunity for someone. A lead magnet is effectively a magnet to create a lead. So a lead is someone that gives an email address to you, because someone's not going to give you their email address if they're not interested in the product or service. It's different. Jesus. Fuck it. My cover fell off. That gave me a fright. Anyway, so a lead magnet, someone's not going to give you their information that isn't easily found if they're not interested in your product. So that's why I always tell people, when you're getting hundreds of emails, you've literally got an on-off tap of clients, because they're not, some are going to take longer, some are going to take shorter to convert, but they're all interested. Otherwise, why do they give you your details? So then I talk about content upgrades. I talk about webinars and online courses, and competitions and giveaways. So you can almost see out of those 4 points how they relate to the newsletter effectively. How do they relate to the 4 points I made about newsletters? So lead magnets can be ebooks. I talked about how Radley he's a really good point of reference if you want to go see him. He's in my Instagram feed as well. But in terms of his ebooks and all of that stuff, he's a great example. Only reason I'm bringing him up is because he joined my Instagram a while ago. So the reference point of he does that really, really well. He releases a lot of different ebooks. He gives a lot of authority in his industry, and that means that he can get those emails, and he's creating what's called a lead magnet. Content upgrades, provide additional premium content related to blog posts, videos users can access in exchange for their email address. So, for example, if we wanted to as an agency, so if you go to www.mptagencies.com and go to the resource section, what we could do is we could put a wall or a pop-up there stopping someone from reading those unless they give us their email address. We don't do that because I don't need to. But if you were someone that wanted to do that, that's a really pretty easy way to do that. You can do that for, like, let's say you're a videographer or a photographer. You could create a section of your newsfeed or your website, and you could just put an email address thing up there. Like, you're not allowing someone to pay. You're just saying, hey, I want your email address in exchange for my video. I could create a series around my live videos once I get to 200-300 episodes that I could provide value for someone for free, but all I have to do is provide an email address, because in those 100 episodes, they're going to find golden nuggets without those live streams, because my live streams are probably going on for, I don't know how long I've gone on for, an hour and 15, right? I did an hour and 48. So on average, if I did an hour and a half every single episode, you've got hours upon hours of social media content there for free. All you need to do is provide an email address. Webinars, online courses. Coming back to Russell Brunson, there's a software called ClickFunnels, there's software called High Level, there's a Kajabi. Any of those softwares provide things like automated webinars or membership areas. They're probably the three best that have that. I would rank that as ClickFunnels, Kajabi, and High Level, only because I'm preference to ClickFunnels and Kajabi and not really to High Level. I don't really have a favorite out of those three. I just think that's the point of what I would structure it as. So webinars, online courses. Webinars are, I would say, almost similar to what I'm doing now, but just in a horizontal form, not a vertical form. And you're probably not going to go on as many tangents as I am. You might have a pitch deck or a PowerPoint presentation that you reference throughout that conversation, but effectively it's a similar structure. You will have a start, a middle, and an end. You might have an offer at the end. In fact, I would recommend you having an offer for the end. But you can, again, that's a tangent we can go down on later on. If you are interested in webinars or courses or whatever and how to structure those, comment in the comment section. I can always create more content around that. But webinars and online courses are, again, something that people underestimate because they deem to feel like it takes too much time to record. Things like Ecamm Live, the software that I'm using right now, actually saves a video file external to these sites that are there. So I can just grab that file, upload it to YouTube, and it's done. You don't need to have this high-end production. You don't have to worry about that stuff when you're in relatively small sizes. So talking about high-value offer that can attract a lot of signups, think about masterclasses or like all of those places or all of those things. You don't have to create such a cliche name as masterclass, but it could be like a unique way to create around a product or service. What I like thinking about when let's say you're a candle or a makeup provider or a e-commerce shop, you might have a new product and you could call it release night. So every month you spend 3.5 weeks or so, because you need a few days to build up around that webinar, but you might spend 3 weeks trying to accumulate signups to this release night. You might be releasing a new flavor, you might be releasing a new product, and you want everyone to tune in to find out what this product is. They're gonna want to do that because of curiosity. You might have a pretty low show rate, but you will have all those email addresses, and that works in the same way. And then finally, competitions and giveaways. Influencers, content creators are a prime example of this. They run a competition associated, coming back to my other episode around how brands take advantage of influencers. The way they do that is by doing competition giveaways, because that influencer is going to get email addresses for that company, right? So it's not just a simple thing about going and, liking and sharing and commenting. That doesn't get anything apart from engagement, which is one caveat to that triad. What I would assume, or a higher production version of that, is simply doing that and having a landing page. A landing page is simply a page that someone lands on. They exchange an email address in order for an opportunity to win something from a competition or giveaway. You're going to get that email address in a CSV file. You upload that to ActiveCampaign. You take them on a customer journey. So you can start seeing how all of that kind of resonates with or explains itself over this live that I've explained. And, that's how it works. So the one caveat that I like leaving at the end is I got this off the Diary of a CEO. It's a version that I created from how he asks the guest to leave a question for the next guest, and that next guest won't know who left it. My version of this in a podcast, because obviously I'm not interviewing guests yet, is leaving them with a really big talking point within themselves. So what this one is, remember, it's not just about growing your list, it's about nurturing your list. So often people focus on one or two. They hardly ever do both. And the ones that do both are the ones that win in the newsletter or the email marketing game. Because when you're attributing a high growth rate of your signups to success, you're missing the point of now you're in. Now you've got that person's email address. Now the work begins. They've trusted you, the individual, the business, or the content creator, with their personal information. Now you need to provide them with value. You need to be authentic, and you need to have engagement in order for them to then go to the next stage to either work with you, buy your product, or become a loyal follower. So it's not just as easy as getting all of these email addresses, it's actually going through the process of nurturing them. So then also obviously engage with your subscribers regularly, respect their inbox, keep their newsletters valuable and relevant and concise. So again, don't spam them for the sake of sending an email every day. Unless you're providing value, don't do it. There's no point because you'll just lose. Again, it's macro, not micro. Micro is such a short-term solution to a long-term goal, where macro for me is I could let someone sit in my newsletter, my email list for 6 to 7 months before they need to make a decision, because the outcome of that is going to be worth the 6 or 7 months. If I have to sit there in a job interview for 7 months in order to get that client or that potential client to work with my agency or work with me, cool. I can outlast the competition. I can outlast the everyday business owner. I can outlast the everyday agency owner because I'm not in a rush. I understand that people need to take time. I'm going to show up every day and earn their respect and earn their work. I'm not going to rush and try and get them to sign up with me because I want the retainer. I'm going to show up every single day to make sure that they know that what I'm saying to them as a business owner, I'm doing myself. Because if I can't do it, why would I expect someone else? It's like my team. Why would I not be able to do something? Why would I not do it and then expect them to do it? So that's the kind of episode. Again, that's probably going to be like 3 or 4 minutes, but in whatever I've just said is going to provide value to someone. But again, in the podcast space, you've got to be really careful around how you explain things, because it is a different explanation than it is on social media like Facebook or Instagram. Cool. All right, there's episode 9. So far we've done episode 8, episode 9. We're on the stretch to do episode 10. Again, if you've got comments, leave them down below. And again, this is going to be saved. So whenever you're watching it, could be a replay, could be live. Just let me know if you've got any questions or queries on any of the points that I've covered. So far, I've said I will give you an example of a social media calendar, and I will give you any of the links that I've talked about through Epidemic Sounds and Active Campaign. So if I haven't done that or they're not in the comment section, just let me know, and I will give you that link. All right, so I think my 10th episode, based on my planner, is, I'm retouching. I thought that was the case. So I made a video on my TikTok about the TikTok trend report for 2024. The reason why I'm doing this as kind of a preference is that I really wanted to make a blog post around this anyway, because from an SEO perspective, I wanted to have a touch point around that to reference it as a full circle moment. So this is a little bit different to what I would normally do if I was just kind of shooting in the dark in terms of getting a different idea, but also I don't want to continually have the same framework go 3 episodes or more. So this kind of brings it back. So I'm just finalizing the different points. I'm making 4 points. I just wanted to add in a bit of, can I put in there? So yeah, this episode for me, I wanted to touch on if a podcast person is going to integrate themselves into the description of the podcast. So the reason why I want to touch back on the trend report is I know quite a lot about it because I've studied it quite a lot, and I've made a fair amount of social media content around it. But at the same time, if I can understand if a podcast viewer is or a podcast listener is going to interact with the podcast description, I know that I can put more links on there. So one of the things this is going to test is pretty much an analytical test or an analytics test. Not so much am I going to think this content's going to do well. I already know it does well because it's current, it's trending. But what I really want to test subconsciously to this is I want to test if people are going to integrate with the references. So when I say references, whenever I do something, when I'm referencing like a report, I want to obviously have the links in there as well, because again, I'm not coming up with this information specifically in this reference. TikTok trend report is coming up with this information. So it's important that I quote that or I link those links in the description so that they can go and get that information there as well. And if, for example, in a month's time, when I review this specific episode, if this did well, then I know that I can also create more episodes around report type information. So for example, let's say midway through the year, there's a report released that gives information around social media analytics or TikTok platforms or Facebook platforms or Instagram platforms or YouTube platforms or whatever, and there's articles. I can then create content around that. And then I can link that full well knowing that framework is going to do well. But yeah, it's really, really important that you reference the links because, again, some of the information I'm saying in the episode is going to be direct quotes to what's being said in the article it's been referenced to. So I like having that framework, especially when I'm creating that into a blog post, but also from a podcast perspective, it's also important to include the links. Cool. So framework, really, the reason I'm not going to kind of go over this is because I've made videos previously. So if you're on the TikTok, if you're on my TikTok account, mattmackay.01, you can go and find that. It's like one of my pinned videos. Same for Instagram, same for Facebook maybe as well. Maybe I didn't make it for that one, but yeah. So finalizing it. I've said again, I've kind of kept it mundane because I've now done 2 episodes where I've spiced up the sub intro. So I've just said welcome back to another episode, Business Bytes Social Media Uncovered podcast. I'm your host, Matt Mackay. Here's the here to navigate the ever-evolving world of social media marketing. If you go back to any of my episodes, majority of those episodes, I'll have the same line. We're diving into the latest trends in TikTok outlined in their 2024 trend report. So again, clear as day, I'm telling exactly that person exactly what they're going to get from listening to that episode. Again, if you're just relatively joining Business Bytes Social Media Uncovered podcast, I'm scripting the next 3 episodes. So currently live, we're up to episode 7. Cool. So I've just covered what I deemed to be the most important cliff notes from that report. So that report is 42 pages long. So I've referenced in my footnotes the actual link to that report. So if you go to the episode when it's live, I don't know when this is going to be live, but whenever you see this pop up on Spotify or Apple Music, by following the account, hint, you can then find that report yourself. Or if you just go to tiktok.com/business/trends what's next, you'll be able to find that. So I covered embrace vulnerability, unpredictable storytelling, tap into music trends, and show creative bravery. The reason why they're coming up with this report is because obviously last year they got a lot of data back from users. They're gaining more users every single day. So the more data they have, the better it's going to be. So then obviously they're predicting or allowing people to know what they're really going to be pushing, or what they're going to be rewarding for 2024. So these are the 4 big ones. Obviously, there is going to be things that I miss, and there's going to be things that people interpret to be more important. But embracing vulnerability, authentically resonating with your audiences. The reference that I did, and this is exactly why I've referenced the report, because this is from the report. It's Dove's Real Beauty campaign. Can translate well on TikTok, sharing real stories of self-love and acceptance, which aligns to the trend of vulnerability. So what does that mean for the everyday business owner? What does that mean for the everyday consumer? The one that thinks for me, and I've already created segments around this for businesses, and they've done exceptionally well. Last year for one client, we did over about 2-point-something million impressions, and probably I'd say 70% of those impressions came from a campaign that I would earmark as a vulnerable campaign, because what we did is we created segments around individual stories, their stories, how they got started, why they're doing it, what's happening now, so forth. So we're connecting all of that vulnerability around that. So I'm not saying that I predicted that. I'm just saying it was a really beneficial campaign for that specific client. And again, I always use that framework that I talked about, the triad of framework. I'm not making that up. That's like something I've used for probably since 2000. So I started in 2015, probably really benefited from it from about 2017 onwards, when I really identified how we can create content that works. Unpredictable storytelling. So I think it's kind of like the way they're meaning this is, when you surprise your audience, the example they give in the report is a travel company, instead of just showcasing destinations, narrate an unexpected adventure or a local's day in the life. Because often, like, let's say you're a travel agent or you're a travel company, you're going up against effectively so many different agencies that are selling similar flights, similar deals, similar locations. So if you were to create a campaign that started with a person boarding a plane, they went to, let's say, Africa, they wanted to go and ride a specific safari, that safari broke down, they got stranded, something happened, The upsell could be like your package that you have when you get insurance or whatever. You could play into that. Then they survive. They get there and they end up walking the rest of the way, and they find all these trails or let's say there's a guide that they meet, right? A random individual that's relevant to that country or that city. That person takes them on a path untraveled. Then they get to their final destination. And then that's the whole example of what that safari is about, or that specific country is about. So that's promoting the country and it's promoting the travel. It's also indicating that you should have insurance when you travel, but also at the same time, you're telling the story in an untold way or a unpredictable way. The predictable way would be you get on a plane, you go to a safari. The safari is nice and interesting and exciting. You get to your destination. Wow, it's a 5-star resort. Cool. You know, like how boring is that? But the end result is the same. They both make it to the end, but one way is more creative and more eye-catching and more unpredictable than the other way. So it becomes a way of saying, how do you tell your story in an unpredictable way? Tap into music trends. I'm not a fan of this. I've never been a fan of, again, TikTok is going to push music because they need to promote it because they're getting contracts. Like they obviously, this report was released before the UMG saga, but to be honest, I'm a blanket not a fan of this. I've never bought into the whole music trend, but it can be used as a trending topic. Like for example, everyone and their dog knows about the current situation that we have. You've got Taylor Swift in the Eras tour. You've got Travis Kelce winning the Super Bowl. They came together. This NFL, I think, got something like over 1 billion more viewers over the course of this time than they would have had at this specific time. And all of this happened. So therefore, all of Taylor Swift's music was being played. X, Y, and Z was happening. That's a good example, I guess, of a music trend. And also, at the early stages of TikTok, when it was just a really small platform, the music is that there'll be a trending sound. If you jump on that trending sound, you'll get more views for it. But I've always attributed that if you use a trending music audio or a trending sound, are those people coming to your account? Are they going to pay you? Are they going to subscribe to your newsletter? Are they going to join your email list? Are they going to buy a product from you? If they're not, then what's the point? Unless you're obviously, I guess, an influencer or a creator. But then again, if you're getting these people joining your accounts, your engagement's going to go down because they're not actually going to buy something from you. The brands that you work with aren't, it's not going to work. So I don't really agree with that. But again, that just comes from TikTok wanting to push music because that's how they make money. And you can't blame them for that. Last one, the one that I like the most, probably that one, and Embrace Vulnerability are the two that I like from that report. Show creative bravery. Don't be afraid to push boundaries. For example, if you're a food brand, experiment with unconventional recipes or cooking methods. Remember, it's about sparking curiosity and imagination. So just as preference, by the way, those are direct quotes from the report, hence why I linked them below. I linked the report below. But I just think, like touching on that creative bravery, we're in such a saturated industry or a saturated space where pretty much everyone's a content creator these days. Everyone's a business owner these days. So how are you going to stand out in a crowded market space? It comes from understanding how you're going to create that content in a brave way, right? Like how are you going to be the person that creates a new cooking trend? Are you going to be a person that creates a new viral hit? Are you going to be a person that creates a new trend, right? Like, the person that creates the first trend is the person that's the most brave to be able to do it, because the person that creates a trend or a piece of content that goes viral is not the first person that came up with the idea. The person that got the reward was the person that took the risk to get that reward. So often people overlook that aspect. They think that person came up with it. Often you look at all of the founders of every big example of our lifetime, they weren't the first person to come up with it. They were the first person to take that information, partly partly validated the idea, but the most important part is they implemented it. They implemented the idea that they wanted to get to. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be the person that implements the idea. Hence, coming back to the whole start of this live. You need to be able to understand that the person that wins in 2024 is the person that implements the idea the quickest. Obviously, you don't want to go out to market when you're not tested, but you need to implement things. Like, not all of my lives are going to go to plan. But if I show up every single day and keep pushing the narrative and keep pushing the boundaries of what I can do to create content, there's going to be one time that I win, guaranteed. So yeah, that's practically the last podcast episode. So to tie this whole thing in, I'm pretty sure I named this live about social media content as well. The way that I tie this in, to just give you a brief understanding of it, because I'm about on time, about hour 50, so I'll tie this live stream up at the end. So to create social media content out of this is pretty simple. So the reason why I emphasize the live opportunity, and I actually created a funnel from scratch for a person yesterday at a client event, is that the way the strategy works is, how do you take one piece of content and multiply that on different scales? So for example, this podcast episode, or these podcast episodes, are going to be recorded, right? They're being talked about on a live stream, but they're going to be recorded. They're going to get turned into a blog post. So there's 3 new blog posts for the website, and you times that by 7. So 7 times 52. So there's going to be X amount of blog posts. From those blog posts, there's going to be an embedded episode of the podcast, because those blog posts are created from the podcast. So although they're going to be written a little bit differently, because again, a person listening to a podcast is different to a person that's going to read a blog post. So there's the same amount of content times 52. Out of those blog post episodes and podcast episodes, there's going to be content structure made from that. When I say content structure, I'm talking about social media content structure. So vertical content, horizontal photos, whatever. And the main way that we do that is, my caveat to that in 2024 is live stream. So if I tie in to what my everyday is happening, so the work that I'm creating, I'm bound to say something that's going to be able to create a piece of content from it. And the way that we do that is we take the whole long, the way that Ecamm Live fits into this, for example, is as soon as I finish this recording, it downloads as a file. I get my editors or myself to go through that, find out what clips are going to be good. Eventually, I'll probably tie in a piece of software that I can at least tap, and then every single time I tap that, it's going to transcribe the whole thing. Every time I tap that, it's going to highlight where I tapped it. Then I can take that. Again, this is a Stephen Bartlett kind of takeaway from this, but it comes back from the research that I've been doing. It just seems the best to be able to do it from a content flow. And then let's say like I said, from my last hour and a half podcast I did on Friday, can't remember when I did it, Saturday maybe, I got 9 episodes. So I won't know this until a month, but let's say, for example, on average, I find 9 pieces of content, and I do a live every single day. 63 pieces of content. My math might be wrong, but yeah, the content structure is relatively straightforward, right? Like, my math might be off, but the content structure is relatively forward. So to sum that up, let's get a piece of paper. And if you are watching, you can do the same. Starts with a live stream, but that live stream can be any medium for you as the business owner. That live stream is going to be talking about one of your key pillar topics, which for me in the moment is podcast. That could change in the future, but at least if I start with the live stream, whatever the piece of content is, that's fine. So for today, it was the podcast. I scripted 3 episodes. Out of those 3 episodes, I can create 3 blog posts. Out of each of those blog posts, I embed each episode of the podcast, which means every time someone reads the podcast, they can listen to a relatively similar podcast episode, which then validates the idea, comes back, but it also gets me more engagement, coming back to that triad of value. So then after that, I go, cool, that's fine. I can get content ideas based on how well, let's say, for example, those episodes did. But at the same time, I go away and I cut up that live stream. So on average, the moment, could change in a month, could be higher or lower. We get 9, which means I'm getting 9 times 7 days in a week, 63 pieces of content. Times that by how many weeks there are in the year, 52. That's 3,276 pieces of content. So 3,276 pieces of content can be created by simply recording one episode of a podcast every day or turning up live to your audience every single day. So those people that often think they don't have enough time, which is majority of the people I talk to, majority of the people that need an agency like myself or my team, is that they're time poor. That's fine to be time poor. You just need to understand where your time that you have available needs to be spent that gives you the best return. Are you willing to turn up for your audience for an hour and 47 minutes at this time and generate 3,276 pieces of content for the end of the year? It's a kind of a no-brainer, right? It's an understanding of this, how many pieces of content I'm going to get. Some of them are going to work. Some of them are going to excel. Some of them are going to fail. You reevaluate. Going back to a video I made before, every 30, 60 days, you reevaluate your analytics, find out what works, find out what doesn't, and then change the content structure. The content structure I'm using now was not the content structure I was using 5 years ago, and the content structure I use in 5 years will not be the same content structure I use currently right now. But the most important thing is that everything intertwines with each other. Everything is accessible to you. You have not lived in a generation as accessible it is right now to the ability for you to create content, impact your audience, and make massive amounts of income for your business, your side hustle, your structure, right? Talked about influencers and creators. If you're worried about how you're supposed to create a business, affiliate marketing is one of them. There's so many different businesses out there you can create content around. Affiliate marketing would be a really good example of an email chain because you could sign up to an email provider, you could sign up to StanStore, you could sign up to any of these things and release products within that. And then all you're doing is creating content on your main platforms. They go to the link, they sign up. Pretty simple. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the live. We've gone for an hour and 48 minutes. I think this is the third, what's today, Monday? I think I started this kind of tentatively on Thursday, but we'll say that it's about 3 days into the 60-day journey. If you are wanting to go along with this journey with me, make sure you like, comment and share this live. Make sure you're following me on whatever account you're watching me, whether you're on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, any of these platforms you're watching this video on. Come along on the journey with me for the next 60 days and let's see how big of an audience we can create together on this whole live streaming, going live and showing up for my audience. I want you to be part of this audience. So if you're watching it for the first time, make sure you do come along. I'm going to not say that I'm going to stay to a specific time frame, but I'm going to show up every single day. So if you're someone that wants that accountability, you want an accountability partner because you're going through something in your business that you want to try and you want to succeed at, often it's because you feel like you're alone that you don't succeed. So if you want to come along with me on this 60-day journey, follow me along, follow on whatever account you're doing. Make sure, this is going to be posted outside of this live as well. So I've covered a lot of really good topics. I've scripted 3 different episodes of the podcast, of the Business Bytes Social Media Uncovered podcast, which you're going to hear in the coming days and weeks. And I've really touched on some really good points. So our first episode was, where was it? Just as the cliff notes, so that the people that are tuning in at the end can understand what the value they can get at the start. So we're talking about evergreen social media content versus trending social media content. We then went on to talk about newsletters and growing an email list and how, like, let's say you're a personal trainer or you're a gym owner or you're a business that relies on getting leads to service your business, doing things that come along with that. Some ideas for that were lead magnets, content upgrades, webinars and online courses, competitions and giveaways are great examples. But again, go back onto the live and you'll find that out. And then the last one was all about the TikTok trend report for 2024 and our takeaways from that. Again, I've referenced that TikTok trend report quite often, and at the bottom of the live or video, I will link that trend report as well, so you can go have a read of it as well. But yeah, main thing is I'm showing up for the next 60 days to see how this is. I'm pretty confident that it's going to be successful, but at the same time, if you are someone that wants to show up for the next 60 days for your business, let me know what you're going to be doing. But yeah, follow along, hit the like button, hit the follow button, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.